Hi, I am Liz Stern from North Carolina. I am thrilled to hear that folks in Argentina are having an implementation workshop and are going to be starting centering. I hear you've done a lot of groundwork to get to where you are. So Debbie asked me to speak a little bit about what are some implementation tips I might have for you. I think the first thing that comes to mind for me is get a steering committee together and make sure that that steering committee is really representative of all the different perspectives. And 100% make sure that administrative leadership is at the table, because I've seen too many times centering champions, people or group care champions, people who love this work and want to make it happen, be the ones that are driving this without that leadership at the table, so the leadership can kind of hear what are the challenges, what are the things you're trying to solve, what are the needs. If they're not at the table from the beginning, then you're going back and trying to re-educate that leadership. So definitely start out with leadership at the table and make sure they stay at the table as you work through all the implementation choices that you need to make. But also think about, do I have everyone's perspective? What about the people at the front desk? Are you thinking about a role that they might play in recruitment, but you don't have them at the table to know if the plans you have for them are going to work? No, you need a rep from them. What about your people who do your billing? Are you kind of making just some plans about how things are going to work without getting their perspective about what's going to? So you want to make sure that all the players are at the table and that you sit down with the steering committee and you, just from the start, you've got all these different perspectives. And then, as busy as people are, keep them there. So that would be the number one thing. It takes some dedicated time. Coordination of group care, definitely in the planning stages, but even once things are up and running and moving well, it takes some coordination time. So build that into you need to build it in somehow into the work of the clinic. If not, no matter how dedicated your people are that are working on group care, they're gonna get burnt out. It's not gonna be sustainable. So figure out, how many hours is that gonna take? How do I carve out those hours so that this is not just something that you work really hard to get started and that it falls apart because there's no time dedicated. So you want to make sure that you're setting your stuff up for long-term sustainability. Think about, I think that once people get into the room, as long as those facilitators have gotten some training in facilitation, because that is different skill set than you get as a midwife or a nurse or a physician or a medical assistant. It's a completely different skill set. So you got to learn facilitation. And if you do, what happens in the group care space is almost always awesome for the patients, for their support people, but also for the facilitators. I was going to say something else about what. So that's good, but sometimes it takes, the thing that can break down in the implementation is you need a really solid recruitment and enrollment plan to actually get those patients in the room to do the group care. So really think about what is your normal process for sort of how patients come into your care, and think about every step of the way, who has contact with patients and what messages might each person be giving along the way. The more people they hear about the group care option from, you don't want it to just be on one person. You might have one core role, but you don't want it to be, you want them to be hearing everywhere. And you want to make sure that everyone in your clinic really knows what this group care is about and is excited about it. And I think the best way to do that is, over time, is there a possibility of having people sit in on one session so they can really see the magic that takes place? What else do I say about key tips? And then like I said before, the people that are doing centering, you see the magic, you see what happens, you see the value to patients, to their family members. But some other folks in the clinic might not, and your administration might not. So I think that that it's really important that those of you who are in that group space bring those stories out. So have at your provider meetings, at your staff meetings, have a little standing agenda item that's always centering, where you can kind of give some updates around how's the recruitment going? What do we need to do to beef things up? And especially bring them those stories, bring patient quotes, bring the stories, because that's going to help others in the clinic who are not in there seeing this magic. It's going to help get them invested in what you're doing too. Let's see, what else do I have to say about implementation tips? Can you hit pause?